Hi there guys, and I just wanted to share with you in this video how I'm utilizing Twingate in my Homelab. So Twingate is kind of like a VPN, and it allows me to get remote access to resources that I have running here in my Homelab. So at the moment I've got a little K3s or Kubernetes Raspberry Pi cluster, and I've got three head nodes, two worker nodes, and I have two which are not actually part of the Kubernetes cluster, two Raspberry Pis which are running Pi-hole. So I've got high availability or redundancy of those Pi-holes which are running my DHCP and DNS. So when you register with Twingate, one of the first things you're going to need to do is you are going to need to create a network. So I'm just going to log in here. And so you're going to see here remote networks. So you're going to create your remote network, and after you create your network, you're going to need to add connectors. Okay, so I've already got two connectors added, and I've put the connectors on my Pi-holes. Now you can put it on one machine, but again, for high availability, redundancy, I put it on two. So it made sense for me to put it on both my Pi-holes. So basically, I have the connectors installed on my Pi-holes. Think of these as like a VPN server. So these must be running behind your firewall, and these are going to be what provides you the connection to your local network. Okay? Now, once you've done that, you're going to then create resources. Resources are services on your network that you want to access. So my first resource here is my 10.1.5. Now, the reason that this resource has been put in a different subnet is because if this resource was in 10.5.5.0, that's 24, it basically gives you access to everything that is on the 10.5.5 subnet on all ports. So if you just wanted like unfettered access to the network, you would make this 10.5.5.0 /24, and then allow it on all ports, and that just gives you complete access to the network, anything that's on it, on all ports. Okay. So what I do is I actually keep this there, but I change it to .1 just so that it won't access everything. But if there was ever a time that I needed to quickly be able to have access to everything on the network and kind of bypass all of these other individual services, then it's there already set up. I just have to change that number. Okay. So for example, I want to access my Grafana dashboard. My Grafana dashboard shows me my health of my K3s cluster and everything else that's going on. So that's basically my way of monitoring my Kubernetes cluster. So I can see uptime, I can see times when things have been down, I can see CPU temperatures, number of cores being used, and so on and so on. Okay. Now, if I want remote access to that, I'm exposing this service through MetalLB. Okay, so I have a load balancer running. So if we go kubectl get service in namespace monitoring, you'll see we have the Grafana service running here, and it's exposed with MetalLB, the load balancer on Kubernetes, with an external IP of 10.5.5.102. This external IP is not like a public IP exposed to the internet. It's an external IP, but it just means it's external to the Kubernetes cluster. It just means this service is exposed on the local network that the Kubernetes cluster is running on. But here's the thing. I have my Kubernetes cluster running on a 10.5.5 subnet, and they are using the Pi-hole as a gateway to my kind of home network 192.168 subnet, which then goes out to the internet through my ISP modem. So this external IP address is not really an external IP address. It's an external IP address external to Kubernetes, exposing this on my local network. Okay? So if I wanted to get access to this remotely from the other side of the world through the internet, I'd have to get in through my ISP's modem, have that forward to my Pi-hole, and have the Pi-hole forward to here. So it's kind of complicated to set up, and you got all these rules that you're going to have to set up for every single one of the services. Twingate really simplifies that for me, because basically all I need to do now here in Twingate, once I am actually connected to my my Twingate VPN, if you like, I just add the services here. So Grafana 10.5.5.102, and the only thing I'm allowing on this particular IP address is port 80. So now from my cell phone, which is not connected to my Wi-Fi, I can access the Grafana dashboard. So I don't know if this shows up very well, but anyway, it's loading. This is 10.5.5.102, and that is my Grafana dashboards available through Twingate. So other services maybe that I want to access. So for example, I've set up SSH. So SSH through to my head node, and from there I can get to any other node. You know, I can SSH into any other node on my network from that. So this gives me access to there on port 22. Okay, Rancher, Pi-hole. So again, you know, if I go to 10.5.5.3, I get my Rancher UI. Okay, you go to 10.5.5.1, and I get my Pi-hole UI or login page. Okay, so basically that is how I access remotely my resources without me needing to set up lots of forwarding and so on. You know, I just basically have the services running on my Kubernetes cluster. I have MetalLB exposing those with a local IP address or an external IP address on my local network. And then I get access to my local network over Twingate. And from there, I can get to anything that I allow myself to get access to by creating these resources. So if you had another thing running on here, for example, your NAS, you know, then you could add that as another resource here, call it NAS, you give it its IP address, choose the ports, and that's it. Now, there's a lot more to Twingate. You know, you can define policies, you can restrict devices, you can restrict by certain device types. You can say that certain devices are not allowed to be authenticated if they're not, if their serial number isn't logged in here. You can restrict them by operating system. So I'm only going to allow iOS devices and Linux devices to connect. I want to ban all Android devices, for example. And then you've got security stuff as well. So there's an awful lot more settings to this. Teams, so you can create teams, you can add people to teams, you can put them into groups. The groups can access only certain things then. So, you know, for example, when we were over here on our resources, you can choose which group has access to that. So at the moment, it's just the default policy, which is everybody. But I could create a network admin group, and they would have access only to the MikroTik, which is my managed switch that I have running on here. So yeah, that's Twingate. You know, there's tutorials out there already that kind of go through the steps of how to set this up. So I'm not going to just repeat other people's work. But that's just how I'm using it, and I have found it useful. It was relatively straightforward to get set up. The learning curve is not too steep. So I definitely recommend checking it out. Check out some of the videos that I've linked to below, which also, you know, take you through the actual steps of setting this up. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.